Thank you. As my alarm screamed this morning, urging me to wake, I stared down at my left limb and thought to myself, how amazing it must feel to wiggle all 10 toes or to even take a step with either leg. Eventually, I hopped to my wheelchair and got centered in the bathroom mirror, and I stared at the scars that tear at my smile and the teeth that aren't even mine. In fact, this has happened for nearly a decade now. There was a time where I hung on to that pain that still comes and goes, but today I am proud of the scars that tell stories on my skin, and I am so grateful to be here with all of you today. My story started when my mom and my dad got married at 18 years old. Shortly after, my dad joined the Marine Corps. At 27 years old, while my family was living on Marine Corps Base 29 Palms, my mom came home and told my dad, I think those female Marines are really badass. My dad turned to my mom and said, I will never be married to a female Marine. To which point she turned around, went out the door, went to the recruiter's office, got an age waiver, and joined the Marine Corps, leaving me at home with my dad while she went off to boot camp. So moral of the story, the apple does not fall far from the tree. After I finished my high school curriculum at 15 years old, and immediately after earning my tier degree from Pensacola State College, just 4 months after my 17th birthday, I went to the recruiter's office and told them that I wanted to join. How lucky was I? I was raised by these two Marine parents they were superheroes. They got up every single day to do something for the greater good. They put their capes on. I idolized them. And I knew at a very early age that I wanted to give them a reason to be proud of me, just like I was proud of them. But, of course, being so young, I needed my parents' consent to serve. My mom, she basically said, good riddance, and signed immediately. I appreciate that. And signed immediately. But to my dad, I had to lie through my teeth, saying that I would do a desk job, like supply or admin. As my luck would have it, as my dad is dropping me off for boot camp, my recruiter casually says, this is great. I've never put a female in for this type of job. My cover was blown, my father was angry, but I was well on my way to spending 6 years in the United States Marine Corps as a helicopter door gunner and airframe mechanic. Now, I would be lying if I said any of it were easy, but I kept my head down to do what I needed to in order to be the best aerial door gunner that I could be. I wanted the people around me to trust that I would protect them just as they were protecting me. I wanted the men around me to trust that I could do the same job that they were doing, and at times, I would do it better. At 19 years old, I found myself on my first deployment with Heavy Marine Helicopter Squadrons 461 and 465. I spent 7 months out there, and when I returned, I decided that I'd had enough of the military life for a little while. So my parents and my little sister picked me up from Marine Corps Air Station San Diego, and we went up to Los Angeles to play tourist. As soon as I entered the hotel, I panicked. I disappeared. I left my family, no phone, no keys, no wallet, nothing. I had totally underestimated the severe difference between life in a combat zone and life as a civilian. After a few hours of being gone, I returned to the hotel to a crying mother, scared little sister, and an angry father. My mom looked at me and she said, I did it with your father, and I can do it with you. We will figure this one out. That was the first time in my life that I realized the significance that a strong support system makes in our lives. After a very brief deployment reset, maybe 2 weeks, my former gunnery sergeant, and somebody who I still consider family to this day, begged me to deploy again. Initially, I fought the idea, thinking that I had had enough of sitting in the desert for the last 7 months. But sure enough, and two weeks later, I found myself on a plane to Hawaii to train with Heavy Marine Helicopter Squadron 362, and in January of 2012, I was right back in Afghanistan. On June 23rd, 2012, I was just 6 weeks away from coming home with my guys. It started like any other day and any other mission. I was running out to the flight line to turn up my aircraft when my maintenance officer said that there had been a change of plan. I was no longer going to be going out on my aircraft, the one that I maintained day in and day out and the one that I flew on. I was going to be going out on a memorial helicopter for some of the guys that we lost before. Everything was going as planned, and then it wasn't. To this day, I can still hear myself counting as if I would when the helicopter were landing safely. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And instead of mains being on deck, that's when my helicopter made impact with the ground. Before I knew it, I was staring at a blue cabin overhead light, struggling to breathe with blood rapidly filling my mouth. I just remember rolling my tongue around my mouth and basically choking on grit and feeling the now missing teeth. My arms tore from their sockets, my leg collapsed underneath me, and I just screamed, but not out of pain, just shock. My tail gunner, who had been my military hero and role model, wasn't responding initially. To hell with me, I just wanted to make sure my crew was okay. Eventually, after 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines came out and provided security, they threw me and the other casualties into the back of the medevac helicopter. The door gunner of the new aircraft bent down next to me, and he said, "Don't close your freaking eyes, because you won't open them again." I told myself that I wasn't going to die without seeing my little sister, and then everything went black. As a result of that helicopter crash, I sustained various and very extensive injuries. A traumatic brain injury, damage to my arms, my ears, my eyes, the left leg amputation. I've gone through 48 surgeries, years of mental health, cognitive, vestibular, and ironically to this day, speech therapy. While all of the physical injuries were absolutely terrible, the most debilitating ones were the invisible wounds. After fighting so long to recover and fighting years to stay in the Marine Corps, and I found out that I was found unfit for duty and I had to accept a medical retirement, that's when I crumbled. I felt robbed. My Marine Corps career was my purpose. It was my identity. I bled green, as they say. I had no intention on getting out of the military. So that is when I truly crumbled. I not only wore scars on my body, but also my heart. That same pain in the butt dad that I mentioned earlier, he was the one that gave me the tough love that I really needed. I will never forget the moment when I had hit my lowest and he came to me with tears in his eyes as he said, "You've got to be kidding me. The enemy couldn't kill you, and now you're going to do it for them?" And that's the moment that I decided I was going to get my life back. If I couldn't show up for myself anymore, then I was going to show up at the very least for my guys and the men and the women who never made it home. Time and time again, I tried to heal within the hospital. I tried to heal within these 4 walls, and it just never worked in my favor. So after I accepted that medical retirement, I needed to starve my ego. I needed to find something that was going to make me vulnerable, something that was going to make me fail, but then also something that was going to build me back up so that I would have the confidence to go forth and pursue even my wildest of dreams. So I turned to the outdoors. When I was still inpatient, there was a nonprofit that approached me and said, "Hey, how do you feel about learning a winter sport?" Being from Florida, I knew nothing about winter or snow or the mountains. I just knew I wanted something to get me out of the hospital. But of course, all my doctors would do would clear me to sit ski. But when I arrived in Breckenridge, Colorado, nobody asked me for a medical clearance. So naturally, I saw a snowboarder and I said, "That's what we're going to do." Before I knew it, I was actually competing with Team USA in motocross and bank slalom. And wow, did it give me this, it opened up so many new doors. I was so proud to be able to represent my country again by wearing the Team USA uniform. But shortly after starting my professional debut, my suffering was brought to a whole new level. I ended up catching a very serious, very dangerous staph infection during one of my surgeries in the hospital. And while I was already an amputee, a below-the-knee amputee, this infection brought my leg to an above-the-knee amputation. It is a whole new ballgame. When the doctors came into the room and then they even told me that they might have to take my hip, I can still hear myself screaming, "Do not wake me up again if you have to take it that high." I was defeated. I was right back in the lowest of the lows all over again. I felt robbed all over again. Since I lost that 2016 snowboarding season, I decided that I was going to heal and take to the mountains in a different way, by climbing and mountaineering. In 2017, again, 4 months after our last surgery, I went down to Africa to climb Kilimanjaro. I summited Kilimanjaro, but that was not the best part. I ended up raising $150,000 for clean water for the East Tanzanians, and that quickly became the start to the best years of my life. Since then, because of those mountains and because of finding that purpose within them, I've gone on to get back on my snowboard and compete again. Just came back from the Netherlands and got 2 crowns. Thank you. As Kaya mentioned, I have 3 master's degrees and a doctorate, all against my doctor's odds and orders. I've invested in several small businesses. I have my own nonprofit, the Kirstie Ennis Foundation. Real original name. I know. I'm an athlete. I'm not creative. And to me, most importantly, I decided that I was going to be one of the first above-the-knee amputees to ever climb the 7 summits. It's the highest peak on each of the 7 continents. However, none of that would have been possible if somebody didn't take a chance on me. Even if I didn't want to believe in myself, there were so many people surrounding me that believed in me. So pulling strength from them, I had the courage to literally go forth and stand tall amongst giants. To date, I have gone around the world. I've navigated jungles. I've climbed the sharpest rocks that the earth has to offer in Oceania. I've literally peeled clothing that was frozen to my skin on Everest and down in Antarctica. And the list goes on. I've cried on the peaks in Latin America and South America, but I couldn't have done that alone. And I wasn't going to be able to do it if I relied on traditional medicine. So imagine with me, if you will, a world where the great outdoors is accessible and encouraged to all. One where we get back to the basics of leaning into each other and just getting outside. Focusing on mobility and movement as medicine, that can unlock a whole new world of healing potential. So as we leave today, I just encourage all of you to really focus on what we can be doing to, again, build communities, lean in, and get outside and upright. Thank you.